Again, for the record, I'm Ralph Silberstein, and I'm a resident of Grass Valley. I'm freezing in
I
here.
know.
Let me
We're
save some energy.
working on the temperature thing here.
Right now, we're having a number of negative impacts in the proposed mine upon property owners in the area. People who have wells near the site have the uncertainty of possible loss of water supply, and this is a cloud on the value of their property. Also, I imagine that the prospect of this mine and ceramics factory is a serious concern for the Loma Rica project as well, perhaps even threatening its feasibility. Add to that the prospects of added air pollution and increased traffic, as well as the frightening prospect that thousands of pounds of cyanide will be trucked in, stored, and used on that site. All of this is bound to discourage potential investors from considering properties in the area, and we are concerned about property values. Regarding jobs, as you may well know, and as stated in the draft EIR, if development were allowed to continue without the mine, but simply according to the general plan, there would be about 800 jobs created over the next 20 years at the Idaho-Maryland site, jobs that could be sustained beyond 20 years. The mine only promises about 400 jobs up to, and most of these jobs will persist for less than 15 years actually, and half of those will go to people out of the area. Without the ceramics factory, we're looking at about 100 jobs for locals. Meanwhile, the project seems to be stalled. I bet we've heard some news that's good. But we see that the comments addressing the draft EIR were submitted back on the 20th, and there were many deficiencies that were stated by state agencies, various experts, and concerned citizens. And many of these very same issues have been identified as areas that needed careful analysis before the draft was started. Unfortunately, that didn't happen as one would have hoped. So on May 20th, the city modified the contract with ESA, and who's been preparing the environmental impact report. And this modification includes funds to, I can quote, the city will apply the remaining funds of the total contract towards the development of a detailed work plan to complete a revised draft EIR. The contract also states that the work plan is expected to take 3 weeks to complete, and it's now been about 16 weeks. Meanwhile, you have the Idaho-Maryland Mine representative, Jeff Stewart, making statements about the draft EIR comment phase in an online video, and I quote, "What I really liked about it is we did pass with flying colors," unquote, apparently leading investors into believing that the final EIR will be out soon. In parallel to that, given the lapse of time, it's not unreasonable to think that ESA has prepared some draft assessment of the scope of work, and consequently many people are beginning to wonder what is going on. And very strange rumors about improprieties are circulating. Let me be clear, I personally don't believe the city has been acting inappropriately, but the delays seem rather extraordinary. So I think it's really important for the city to answer these questions, maybe with a public statement about, does the planning staff really feel that the mine could realistically produce a final EIR without recirculating, and when they would expect the consultant to produce the report. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
So
Rob.
is that an accusation against the city that I just heard, or is it a rumor?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. I have heard no rumors or anything, but I think that it's my understanding that there's going to be a new draft EIR
Correct.
done.
Okay.
And I think what we're waiting for is for the applicant to give us the appropriate funding to move forward with that.
And submit the changes.
And submit the changes that, based on the existing EIR, there's a number of changes that the applicant wants to make. Once they make changes, we have to do a whole new EIR. So that's the process.
And just to clarify, when we're talking about a new draft EIR, it will have to be circulated again for comment, opportunity for public to review and provide comment. So,
Yep.
you know, it's that whole process again.
Okay, I think this will help a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what, I haven't heard any rumors. I don't know what inappropriate things that the city has done. I believe the city's been very straightforward about what this process has
Actually, I do
been.
too, and that's what I just said.
Yeah.
But people are asking me, and they're saying all these things. I'm going, well, and so thanks.
Thanks for clearing it up. Put the word out. I know Dave didn't sit here for an hour and a half to speak to.
Yeah, my name is Dave Watkinson. I'm the president of Idaho-Maryland Mining Corporation. I live off of Dog Bar Road in just outside of Grass Valley. Yes, we have been in the process of redoing different parts of our project to look at some improvements we can make. We certainly looked at the comments that came in as part of the draft EIR process, and part of what we've said at every meeting that I've come to talk to you is that we're interested in building a project that's good for the community here. So we saw some changes that we could make to the project that we think will be improvements, and we're incorporating those into our project description, which we'll provide to the city here shortly. But it takes time to go through this process, and there's a lot of things that are linked to a change in a project that affect other parts of the project. So making a change in one area often affects changes in other parts of the project that we then have to go back and do calculations on and make sure that the data that we provide will update the total EIR as we go through. So we are looking at doing a revised EIR. That doesn't mean necessarily that we're completing a whole new EIR, but there's certain sections that will get updated as we go through the process of doing a revision. It will go through a public process again. There are things that drive recirculation in the CEQA process. So depending on the changes that we finalize, when we submit to the city, we'll sit down with the city and determine, based on the CEQA law, what will drive recirculation, and that decision will be made. You know, it is our thought at this point in time that we probably will have to have a revision, and we're preparing for that. So, you know, it does take time to go through this process. We are in the process also of raising money for the company to move on to the next phase. That's been announced publicly, so that is another portion of it. The city has been involved in trying to put together a budget for the next phase, but they also need us to submit our information so they can finalize that budget, and that way we can do our planning financially to go move forward on when it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and all those things. So those are things that we need as a company from the city as we move through the process. So there's nothing underhanded going on. It's just a question of completing the work and getting it done, and making sure that it's accurate when it goes to the city. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Is it appropriate to ask some of these guys questions?
Let's finish the public
Yeah.
comment.